As the sneaker culture continues to expand via celebrity endorsements or athlete contracts and collaborations, every single sneaker brand has been pumping out more and more content to make sure that the demand will constantly beat the supply. That being said, the aftermarket in sneakers has really started to blow up, especially in the past 10 years. And so, it becomes equally important for influencers and stakeholders in the sneaker community, such as myself, to constantly update and pass along new knowledge about how to shop in the aftermarket, so that people like you and your friends and family don't get screwed out of their hard-earned money, and you get only the most authentic product and sources. And so that brings us to our topic today, where I'll be talking about my guidebook of how to buy sneakers on the aftermarket or for resale. If you can make it to the end of this video, I know you're gonna find something informative, and I hope that you share it with the rest of your circle to make sure that every time you guys are shopping a new source, you don't get screwed over. That being said, let's dive into item number 1. Check the source. Now, if you've been working with the same seller, store, or website for some while now, this item becomes less of a concern. I mean, that is assuming you did your due diligence at the beginning to make sure that this source was authentic to begin with. The first thing you want to look at is, does the business have references? If they're a business on Instagram, could you ask them to send you some reviews that they've collected? If it's a website, is there a section for reviews where you can actually see some past purchases and customers? Or if it's a local business that sells aftermarket sneakers, when you ask others in the community or in the neighborhood, do they speak highly of it selling authentic products, or do they tell you to stray away? Because anytime they tell you to stray away, it's probably best just not to take that chance. In checking the source, looking at a business or a seller's references is always my first go-to. However, we recognize that with all these different applications and automatations, that's not always foolproof. And so within checking the source, we also need to think about if this business has been consistently selling and pushing out aftermarket sneakers, maybe looking at their post times, seeing how often they've been posting and for how long the business has been doing this. The longer that we can see a business doing this, the more reputable or trusted it can become. Lastly, the way that you can check your source is by doing your research and looking up the many ways that this business either promotes itself on different platforms or sells on different platforms. Because the more consistency that I can see between all these different things within the same business, the more trusted or more confidence I can have in saying that this business is real and authentic. And as a quick little caveat to that, if you're finding the same business on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, take a look at their contact forms. If all those email addresses or ways of reaching out become the same, then that consistency is a good sign as well. Fake businesses or businesses that try to do this for a quick scam usually don't get that right. Great, so at this point you've checked your source and it looks pretty reputable and trusted. Your confidence is a little bit increased. But now, let's move on to item number 2. Check the price. Now, before we dive into this step, just keep in mind, if they didn't pass number 1, we're not even gonna move on to checking the price. Checking the source and making sure it's reputable is the most important. But after that, to continue to increase your confidence that this sneaker is real, we're gonna start to focus on the market price or trying to find its average. When I look at GOAT, StockX, Flight Club, Stadium Goods, all these larger, more reputable businesses that are known for selling sneakers on the aftermarket, I start to get a pretty good idea of how much this sneaker costs for this specific size. If I'm able to gauge the market price and find the average, then I can check this news source and see, hey, is their price significantly lower? Because that starts to raise a lot of red flags, and it might make me go back to step number 1 and recheck that source one more time. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's fake, because to be honest, sometimes you might just find a really good steal. But that's why the next steps are going to count even more. But on the flip side, if the price of that news source is significantly higher than your market average, then maybe you just want to shop somewhere else. So there's not too much left to talk about on that step. It's really up to you to do your research and make your best judgment based on what you're seeing. Let's move on to step 3. Product pictures. So when it comes to breaking down the importance of product pictures, it really depends on the platform that you're shopping on. If we're shopping on Instagram, for example, a lot of those product pictures might be readily available because this business is already trying to promote it. That being said, it's up to you to do your due diligence to make sure that this photo actually belongs to that business. Does it look a little fishy, like every photo they're posting just has a different background or a different filter or different lighting? Those are usually red flags. Does it kind of look like those photos actually belong to someone else? Then I would dive a little deeper and look into other sources to make sure that this logo or this photo isn't actually stolen. But on the flip side, some platforms might not even offer product pictures, such as TikTok, where someone's trying to sell a sneaker but off of a video. Then it'll be up to you to really DM that person or shoot them a message and say, hey, I'm interested in this item. Can you send me a few more pictures? Sometimes you might even experience some businesses and platforms that share no product pictures. For example, StockX, where they just show you a 360 of the sneaker where you get a general view of it, but not exactly the one that you're buying. So it's really up to you at that point whether I trust the reputation of this business or if I want to dig a little deeper and see if I can get those exact product pictures of the pair that I'm buying. That being said, to wrap up this category, the more pictures that I see, the more different angles that I see, and the more open the seller is to sending these photos in all the different ways that I want them, the more confident I become in trusting this source. We're getting to the end here, guys, so trust me when I say this step is invaluable. Payment methods. So if you've been following along in this guidebook and checking a new source, at this point, they've probably passed steps 1, 2, and 3. So your confidence in that business or the seller is significantly increased. However, step 4 is super important because trust no one. Sorry, I got a little caught up in memory lane there, but trust no one because you can never be too safe, right? So when it comes down to the payment methods and the final step where I'm about to check out, I'm gonna start to look at how can I pay. If a seller is only asking me to Zelle it or Cash App it or pay it in cash, I'm a little bit more worried, right? And I really want to make sure steps 1, 2, and 3 are absolutely solid, right? And this is someone reputable who will actually send me the sneaker. If they're a little shaky on steps 1, 2, and 3, then step 4, I'm really going to start to look for some payment methods where I have a little bit more security. I think about PayPal invoice, that escaped me for a second, where at the end of the day, if I sent that money, I at least have PayPal to back me up, and I can argue with them that they never sent the product or it was actually fake. If I use my credit card, for example, if I'm shopping off a website and it allows me to use my card, at least then I can go back to my bank if in the worst case scenario, I didn't get my sneaker or it was fake, and I can say, hey, let me dispute this charge. So finally, at step 4, when you're just about to check out, when I'm seeing all these different payment methods, it definitely increases my confidence, but also use the safest one for you where you can actually have some security in your purchase. Final step, pull the trigger. Let's do a quick recap. First, you make sure to check the source and it seems pretty reputable. Second, you made sure that the price was right and consistent with the market. Third, you asked for those product pictures and they look pretty good. Fourth, you have a payment method that has plenty of securities and you feel pretty confident. So step 5 should come quite naturally. Pull that trigger and buy that pair of sneakers that you've worked so hard to make sure it comes from a legit and authentic source. Now it's time to reap the benefits. But a last little word of caution before I let you guys go. Understand that every time you're working with a new seller, whether it's a reputable business or not, there's always a little bit of risk when it comes to the aftermarket. At the end of the day, you want to stick with a business that will honor their word and honor you as a client. And so that's it on our first 5 steps of Vital's guidebook of shopping sneakers on the aftermarket. Understand this is something new that we're bringing to the community and hopefully something that's a staple to make sure that all of us benefit. Make sure you comment if you learned something new and subscribe so that you can continue to see us develop this guidebook and add new items as the culture develops. And before I let you go, let's just lay it all out on the table. This whole guidebook and all the steps that I share with you mean absolutely nothing if me, myself, and my business, Vital Kicks, was not a reputable source. So I suggest you follow those same 5 steps with your boy and start with checking your source. VitalKicks.shop. Read about us, see our reviews, see everything that we do for the community. But on top of that, you'll also find a PDF version of this guidebook in case you want to read it and if that's your way of engagement. At the end of the day, we thank you for all that you've done for us and our community, so we only hope to give back. That being said, don't forget it's your boy Vital, and we'll catch you next time, VK family.